All right, we're going to do another example of doing a 5-number summary and the box and whiskers. So the data that we have is the following. We've actually seen this before, but we're going to do it again. So the first thing that we do, if you recall, is we order the data. And I'm going to bring up some stuff that we already found. So the next thing that we do is we find the median. And this happened earlier in the lecture. We did this same data set. Oh, not this lecture. In the previous lecture, we did this same data set. So in the section 3.3, we did the same data set. The first thing that we want to find is Q2. And Q2 is the median. And if you look, the median is going to be the average of the two middle scores. Because we have an even number of data points, we're going to average the two middle scores. So this is 18.5. Q1 is the median of the lower set of data, and that includes the 18 because we had to average to find that median. And so this one is going to be the average between the lower set of data, the two middle points. And that's 16.5. Q3 is the median of this upper set of data. So that's the average of those two middle points, because they're middle points. And we get 20.5. And then we want to get the 5-number summary, so we need the minimum. That's 3. We need the maximum. That's 22. And we need to test for outliers. That may change the min or max. If the min or max is an outlier, then we don't go that far. Okay, so to do outliers, we need the inner quartile range. So that's 20.5 minus 16.5, which is 4. And then we take that number and multiply it by 1.5, and we get 6. So the lower limit is Q1 minus that 6, so it's 10.5. And the upper limit is Q3 plus that 6, so it's 26.5. So we do have an outlier. That outlier is 3, so we're going to say the minimum is really 16, the smallest data point that is not an outlier. All right, so now we're going to draw our box and whiskers. So we need a number line that will span the whole data set, even the outlier. So we've got to go from 3 to 22. So I'm going to go by, I don't know, let's go by 2s. So 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. Okay. So now the first thing that we do is we do our outlier 3. That's just a dot. And then we're going to do our minimum value, which is 16. Our Q1 is 16.5, so that's a straight line. Here's 17, 16.5 is right about here. Our Q3, 20.5. I'm going to make a box out of that. And in that box, I'm going to put my median, which is 18.5. Okay, and now I need my maximum, which is 22. and then I connect those. Now I don't connect the outlier. The outlier does not stay connected. All right, so what's our skewedness here? Well, this portion of the graph looks fairly symmetric, but this outlier is pulling everything to the negative side. So I would say this is negatively skewed. All right, so that's that example. Now what we want to do is another example where we combine two problems. And so I'm going to show you this without finding the Q1, Q2, Q3. I'm just going to tell you what they are. So it's the size of dams in the U.S. versus South America. Okay. So in the U.S., the 5-number summary goes as the following. We have a minimum of 50,000, and I'm not sure, 50,000 square feet maybe, or something like that. Q1 is 57,642.50. Q2 is 721.00. Q3 is 85,004, and the max is 125,628, and there are no outliers. South America has a minimum of 46563, a Q1 equals 103979, a Q2 equaling, whoops, wrote wrong, that was Q2. Let's fix that. So Q1 is really 56242, and Q3 is 274026. And then the max is 311539, and it turns out there are no outliers. Okay, so what I really want to do is show you how to do a box and whiskers for two data sets. And these two data sets are going to be on the same horizontal axis. So here we have a horizontal axis, all right? And we have to fit these two sets of numbers on there. So notice the minimum that we have is 46,563, and the maximum we have out of these two data sets is 311,539. So I've got to go all the way from 46,563 to 311,539. So I'm going to go by increments of 25,000, I think is what I'm going to do. So we're going to start down here, kind of below. Here's 50,000. This is thousands. Okay, so here's less than that. So let's see, that would be 25,000. All right, and then we're going to go to 75,000. We're going to go to 100,000. 125, 150, 175, 200, 225, 250, 275, 300, 325. That should be enough. Okay, now we're going to do each box and whisker for each category, for the US and for for South America. So let's do the U.S. first. The minimum is at 50,000. Q1 is 57,642. So 57, let's see, that's 60, 57, someplace right in here. And I'm just doing estimates. Q3 is 85,000. So let's see, half of. So 85 is, what is that, 25? Half of 25 is 12 and a half. So it's got to be somewhere right in here. Okay, and then we're going to make a box out of that. And we're going to put the Q2 in there. So Q2 is 72. So let's see, 25, 62 and a half, 72, someplace right in here is 72. And the maximum is 125, so a little bit over 125. There we go. So that's the box and whiskers for the U.S. Okay. Now above that, we're going to do the one for South America. So South America starts at 46, so a little bit below the 50,000. And then the first Q1 is 56. And what was that one? 57, so pretty close to this one. Okay. And then 103 is Q2. Let's do Q3, 274. Ooh, that's way up here. 274, that's way over here. Okay. So we want to make a box out of that. Man, it's a lot more spread out, than the U.S. And then 103 is where we want the Q2. And then 311 is where our other dot is. And we connect our whiskers. Now let's write our numbers on these things so we can remember what's going on. So 50,000, I'm going to write 57,000, 72, 85, 125. Then I'm going to do 46, 56, 103, even though it's closer to 104, 274, and 311. Okay, so those are our two box and whiskers. And then if we want to compare them, we notice that South America is more spread out. Both appear right skewed, right or positively skewed. What else can you notice? South America is quite a bit, has much larger numbers, has much larger values than North America, or what do we call that? United States and U.S. Okay, so that's a comparison. Anyway, that's everything for this section. That is 3.4. That ends the chapter 3.